When you send out your first communication, and now more and more of them are going by email, they're not going, and you know there's going to be another postal rate increase in the next couple of weeks, with lots of new rules about where you put the addresses and where you put the indicia. And so, I mean, these things constantly change. Again, when we first started the magazine, everything was the same for 10 years. It was lovely. But then all of a sudden, everything started changing all the time. But at first, you're going to want to tell people when and where the reunion is going to be. Even if you haven't selected one of those things, I think probably getting an early communication out that this is about to happen, an imminent decision is going to be made. But if you're going to do any of the fundraising activities that require a long time to get done, cookbooks, memory books, directories, quilts, anything that's going to take time, you have to announce that really early if people are going to have to participate in helping you get these things done. And by participate, I mean just contribute. If you're doing a quilt, you want them to contribute squares. If you're doing a cookbook, you want them to contribute recipes. If you're doing a directory or a memory book or something like that, you want them to contribute whatever parts you have in mind. But the earlier you start collecting this stuff, the better it's going to be, because toward the end, which we will talk about, these things have to go, like the print things have to go to the printer 6 or 8 weeks ahead of time. You're not going to take this stuff in the day before, or if you're having t-shirts made. All of these things have to be ordered well in advance so that they are there at the reunion, and that you don't find yourself the next week packing them up and incurring the cost of postage to mail t-shirts to everybody because they didn't get there in time for the reunion. And that's a tragedy that I hear every year as well. Okay, we've just talked about this. Any of the kinds of things that you have to order, you have to get the information ahead of time. Not necessarily a year for that, but people should know that these things are coming. If you're going to have a caterer, if you're going to have entertainment or a photographer, again, you should be at least looking for these people ahead of time and booking them. Because summer reunions, there are all kinds of things about summer reunions that there's some places that are easier to get because it's summer, but there are also some things that you're going to be competing with other people. And I mean, for caterers, for example, you're competing with weddings, and so and on weekends, because if you could do your reunions during the week in areas where hotels don't have a lot of business traffic in the hotels, you're better off. But for the most part, reunions are on weekends, and you want to, whatever the limited number of people are that can help you with the reunion, such as caterers, entertainers, photographers, you're going to want to book those people ahead. Okay. About 6 or 9 months before, another communication where you start really pushing deadlines. Deadlines are a serious issue for readings. I'm sorry, I seem to have my back to you all the time. Can I just apologize or thank you? Or I could come back like this. You are going, for the purpose of the hotel and for the purpose of getting the rooms, you are going to have to, people are going to have to reserve it well in advance. And this is all this advanced stuff that I know later we're going to talk about, because you're going to say to me, but my family doesn't do these things and they don't get the stuff in on time. So we'll talk about that later. We'll move past that right now. If you're going to have a theme to your reunion, probably this may be even a little bit late to establish it, because if you're doing parties that have to do with the theme, or any of your fundraisers, or any of the things that you're doing, you have to select these things in advance. If you're doing, for example, which a lot of people do, Christmas in July or Christmas in August, whenever your reunion is, because everybody can't get together for Christmas, you really sort of have to make that decision before the last Christmas. So you can, on the 26th of December, you can go out and get this stuff for greatly reduced prices. But there are lots of families that go and chop down that Christmas tree in the middle of July and decorate it, and do crafts with the kids, making decorations and things like that. By 6 to 9 months out, it's not too early to start doing a schedule of what you hope to do at the reunion, because again, you have to reserve things, you have to do contracts, And that people really, at this point, need to know what's going to happen at the reunion. One of the things, and I see a number of men in this room now, lots of men love to play golf. I know women do too. But if the men know that they're going to come to the reunion and be able to play golf, you're going to have them hooked. In the surveys we've done, 20% of all reunions include a golf game of some kind. Either people going off and playing golf, or oftentimes families will have golf tournaments, or use the opportunity to teach kids to play golf or whatever. But 20% is pretty high, and so what you need to do when you're looking for a location is also make sure that their golf course is close by if you're going to offer that as one of the activities that people can do. And, by now you should have your block of rooms reserved. And that's, we'll get to the contract stuff later. Okay. Now you have to begin, if you're doing any kind of print materials, memory books, or many families do a family history book, but usually that's done long before this. But any of these things, you really have to start working on them so that you can start submitting, talking to people about submitting your orders. If you're doing t-shirts or anything that's imprinted, t-shirts, caps, mugs, pencils, whatever, you should be, at this point, probably have looked at a number of companies and chosen one to do whatever your imprinting is. There's material in your bags, and the company that made the bags, I would urge you to consider them because they were very generous. They're not here today, but they were obviously very generous to this workshop. And if you don't have a place that does t-shirts, certainly consider them. A t-shirt, when you're looking at some of these things, particularly t-shirts, if you see ads for imprinting stuff, they rarely have their addresses. They have their phone numbers, and usually the phone numbers are toll-free numbers, so you don't necessarily know where they are. These are kinds of things that you shouldn't feel uncomfortable with ordering from somebody that isn't in your immediate area, because that's the kind of business that they do. They don't necessarily, these aren't necessarily vendors whose shops you're going to walk into. You're probably going to do a lot of your business online, by email, or by phone, and fax. And don't go to anybody who doesn't let you proofread the material. Even if it's as simple as putting Smith across a t-shirt, you're going to want to proofread it before they start printing it, because you would be amazed at how many letters can get transposed. And once the t-shirt is done, everybody has a poorly spelled name on their t-shirt. But then that can become material for family legend too. You can talk about that and say, wait till you hear about our t-shirts. Some friends of mine years ago had made a silver plate for me for something I had done. And it was supposed to be engraved with the husband and wife's names and the children's names and thank you on it. But instead it said thank you, and then it had their phone number and their address, because the contact information was what they engraved, not the thank you. Now, I love showing that off, because that's a great story. I just told it to you. I should bring it along. But these kinds of things, once it's done, it's done. There's no going back over these things.